Okay, folks, in this lesson we are going to be moving on to our next session of mixed media projects. For this project, we are really going to be focusing on the artwork of the Italian artist Tatiana Trouve. Tatiana Trouve is a very young modern artist. She's only in her early 30s, and she works primarily now in Paris, France. She is a mixed media artist, meaning that just like with the mixed media projects that you've worked on before, she works in a lot of different media, from sculpture to painting to collage to even some digital art. She's really, really good at going in and finding new ways to create things using a variety of different materials. So when you go in and you look at Tatiana's artwork, the one thing that I think should stand out to you is how focused she is on the idea of space. Not space as in outer space, but space as in an actual physical space that she wants to come and take the viewer in. Both of these are paintings that she's done. These are paintings that are about 5 feet long by 3 feet tall. What I find to be really interesting about these paintings is her use of color, how she goes in and she uses a very, very even plane of color with like the baby blue here, or even the navy blue to the tealish color in the center. But what's really, really interesting is her use of linear perspective. She'll actually go in and draw over the top of her paintings using pen and ink and using charcoal. That's how she's getting some of these washy effects that you see back in the background areas. What is the other thing that she does is you can see that these paintings are actually sketches or studies for future installations. That is really what she's best known for. So when you look at this picture, you're going to see some installations coming forward that are inspired by this particular piece. You're going to see a lot of wire sculptures that she creates that are inspired by these particular pieces. And when I say space, that's really what I'm talking about. She's like building up that sense of depth and space in these paintings, definitely by the use of linear perspective, but also by putting these forms in. Once she completes one of these paintings, then she goes and she actually builds those structures and puts them inside of a room. And when she goes in and puts them inside of the room, it's the viewer's job to go through and actually walk in between or walk around these sculptures that she creates, so that she is literally leading the viewer through the installation, through the large room that she's created, so that they have to interact with the space that she has built. So space is really a thing. Space or place. The place of the viewer is what she's super, super focused on. I really like this series of work that she's done. They are sculptures that are very abstracted, almost cubist, done in the Picasso style of a crowd of people. So you can see the heads, you can see the arms, you can see the expression of how she's showing the body and the forms. Just another interesting play on the term cubist, how she's got all of the different blocks. Like she's definitely playful with her style. Here's another one of her installations. Once again, it's all about making the viewer walk around the space. And these are all things as an artist that she actually constructs. She pours the cement, she breaks it down, she plans all of these down to the minutia, down to the smallest bits. Now, so really, when you look at Trouve's work, she is best known as being a mixed media artist and mostly an installation artist. Different museums and galleries will hire her to come in and set up rooms inside of their gallery for the viewers to come around and walk in. And that's what she has done for the majority of her working career until COVID hit. Once COVID hit, especially in Paris, where Trouve lives, when COVID hit and France went into lockdown, they were under a really, really strict lockdown, much like Italy was, where people were not allowed to go outside. That's how restrictive the lockdown was. And what Trouve found was that once the lockdown went into effect, she couldn't go to her studio and work. Once she wasn't able to leave her apartment, there were weeks and weeks where she was stuck inside of her apartment and wasn't able to go out and work for a living or work as a way to appease her own creative nature. So what Trouve started to do is she started to focus on reading the news, on reading the newspapers. And over the course of weeks, what she decided that she was going to do is that she was going to take this idea of place, and she was going to go in and she was going to experience and convey her sense of place, either her actual living space, the place that she lived, or the place that the world was in, as far as the politics and the health, and just the world's interaction with COVID and this unprecedented time that every single one of us has lived through over the course of a year and a half. What Trouve would do is she would go in and she would purchase newspapers from different major publications around the world, and she would look for newspapers that either had interesting images on them or interesting headlines that she could use, and she would use the additive and reductive techniques of mixed media to go in and build images on top. What is so interesting about using newspapers as a surface to be able to work on top of is, first of all, with a hard latex eraser, you can go in on top of a newspaper and erase probably about 85% of the print that's there simply by just going in on top of the newspaper and erasing. So when you look up at this section right here, she actually went in and erased the section of print. Same with this section right in here. She went in and erased what was on top of, or like erased the images in the print on the newspaper, and then went back in with charcoal and white pastel to go in and create drawings on top of the image. That is literally what your assignment is going to be. So I just want you to pay attention to her, how Trouve will go in and will incorporate the actual printed word and printed picture into a part of her, a part of the composition. Look at how, like if you look at the rule of thirds, how this is divided up. You've got your third line here, you've got your third line here, how the eye naturally travels through this composition, going down the boa constrictor and up on this side. This is literally a drawing of her pet boa constrictor, who she sat with for weeks when she was in quarantine. So what does this have to say? Like, what is the political ramification? I'm not quite sure that there is, and that's okay. Sometimes it's all right with just making interesting images on top. But as you get further into this, it's really interesting to look at her pieces and see the visual symbolism. If you look over at the piece on the left, the Guardian, okay? So this is the Guardian publication out of England. The headline is, "The Prime Minister of Britain stay in and stop the spread of coronavirus." So here's this picture of all the people, and what did she do? She drew a picture of her German Shepherd, her pet, directly on top. Look at that play of the words, the Guardian. Over the top of having a picture of the dog that is which is her guard. That is the guard of her house. So it could be something as simple as that. What you want to do is you want to play with either when you go in and you choose the article that you're going to be drawing on top of. There's two things that you want to pay attention to. Are you going to play and juxtapose off of the printed word, Or are you going to go in and are you going to just play around with straight composition? So you've got the tubes, okay? So this is, you have the picture of the doctor, you've got the tubes representing IV needles, representing intubation as far as COVID is concerned. And so while this image doesn't tie directly into these two different pieces, what it does do is it does create an interesting composition in how she's dragging lines from one piece all the way over to the other piece. The real important thing is making sure that you are able to go in and you can still see some areas of where things are either erased. You can see how things are erased down in here, or where things are drawn directly on top. Those are all options that you have. Here's some more pieces. Really like this play on time, the times of India. Times of India with the clock coming down, and then you've got the scrub or the hospital blanket that's folded up. You can turn around and say this is a play on time. Like, how much time do you have alive? How long is it until you get sick? Like, and I'm really not getting political here. This is directly related to what Trouve was trying to get across in her pieces. When you look over on the right, this is a picture of her closet. But when you look into the closet and back in the back, this is where she's left the picture of the doctor coming through. So you can really see, like in this section here, this is where she went in and she used the eraser to erase this portion of the newspaper. You can see other places that it's erased. You can also see where she went in with charcoal and drew on top. Really playing around with that sense of space with her linear perspective coming through and that sense of depth and form. But also, once again, where making that clear decision of where you can see parts of the newspaper coming out, where you can see parts of print coming out, and directly where you can't. That is going to be one of the biggest decisions that you have to make. Here's a couple of more. You have this piece over on the left, this picture of the soldier. There's really hardly any places, like she did a little bit of erasing down here on this bottom edge, but for the most part, most of these lines are drawn in with charcoal. You have the soldier that is being put into a box. Is that a box of him just following orders? Is that the box of the soldier having to go and fight the war? Is that a box that is the coffin that he might get sent home in? I don't know. I don't know what that is. That is up to you to decide. You have the piece over on the right talking about different areas of Africa, third world country versus first world country. So you have that story of how this community is affected by COVID, and then she went in and she drew a still life of the art that she collects in her house, juxtaposing the wealthy or the first world haves versus the third world have-nots. Here's another piece. This is literally a drawing of her actual bedroom, how she built up that space, that juxtaposition, social distancing. What does that say? Social distancing when the bedroom is in place. There's nothing more intimate than the place that you sleep. So if the place that you sleep ends up becoming the prison that you are kept in, and you know that you want to go out and you want to experience life, but you're stuck here, how do you balance those two things coming through? So your job is to find a article or a page of a newspaper. Has to be a newspaper, can't be a magazine, because magazine paper you can't erase the same way as you can with a newspaper. You got to be able to have that freedom to cover up or to erase different areas, and magazine paper just doesn't work. Your job is to find a spread in the magazine, or not, sorry, find a spread in a newspaper that when you look at it has either images that are captivating to you, has headlines that are captivating to you, or has a story that's captivating to you. And your job is then going to be to create an image that is based on that printed piece. I'm not requiring anybody to get political. not requiring anybody to come in and to make a statement. But in this piece, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, between the continuation of COVID, between everything that's happening as far as climate change and the things that are going on in the world, as far as we're talking about us leaving Afghanistan. Like, if you want to go in and if you have a statement to make, you are absolutely allowed to make those statements. If you're anti-mask, I don't think anybody should wear a mask, all of this is hogwash, okay, that's fine. You are allowed to make a piece based on that. If you are, why in the world isn't everybody wearing a mask? Can't you see that this is something that we need to do for the good of our community? Okay, you can make a piece on that. I'm not dictating to anybody what your piece is. What I want you to do is to find a newspaper article that you are going to be able to convey something that you believe, something you believe in, something that you have to say. I want you to use this as an opportunity to be able to express yourself in whatever arena it is that you want to express yourself. I want you to be able to dig deep into your thoughts and beliefs and to be able to put that out into a visual form in this mixed media piece, without judgment and without being punished. Does not matter to me where you're coming from, as long as the material that you're using is school appropriate. That is the long of the short of the introduction for this particular assignment. If you have any questions and you're under quarantine, please email me at jt@muhs.com, and I will go ahead and answer any questions that you might have.